We're all going to have setbacks, whether it is in business or in life or in health or in relationships, in anything. We can't avoid them. We're going to have these moments that come out of nowhere, and they're going to be big setbacks. That's literally just the circumstances of being human, living in a very human world. But there's 4 things you can do to turn that setback into something extraordinary.
Welcome, everybody, to the Chris Harder Show, where we are making you unapologetic about your pursuit of success, knowing that when good people like you make good money, they can then do great things. My name is Chris Harder, and several times per week, I will bring you epic guests, solo episodes, and every single tool, trick, and skill set you need to grow your business, grow your money mindset, and to grow your wealth to levels that you have never reached before. I've ended up in a unique place in life where I've got the experience, the connections, and all of the secrets that it takes to be successful. And I'm lifting the curtain to reveal it all to you in an effort to help put you in a position of abundance so great that you can then be as generous as possible. So let's lock arms and let's get started.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Chris Harder Show, where today I am grateful for all the great people that I have in my life to help me out when I have a setback, because that is what I have had, and that is what this episode is about. So, unfortunately, this weekend, I tore my bicep, and not like a little bicep tear, like the grotesque, tore it off my shoulder. It fell down my arm, into a lump ball that just sits there now. Oh, it is not good. And I did it. You're probably wondering how I did it. I did it moving. You see, we sold our home that we have in Newport Beach here. It just felt a little bit small for us, and we wanted something a little bit bigger. And so we were moving into the bigger home that we got a few blocks up the hill. And, we hired movers, obviously. But even when you hire movers, there's still things you have to do yourself. And I, being the dummy that I am, was trying to get things going faster. And the other night, I've lifted this heavy box off of a shelf in the closet above my head and then extended it out in an awkward fashion, like out in front of my body, slowly lowering it down to the bed. And that's when I heard pop, 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 pop. And I felt it. And the box just dropped onto the bed. And I knew in that moment that I was screwed. I didn't even want to look. I went to Lori after letting it sink in for a minute. I went to Lori and I'm like, babe, I don't even want to look, but I know what happened already. I knew it was my shoulder and my bicep. I had a big sweatshirt on over it, right? So I couldn't see it. So I don't even want to look, but I know exactly what happened. She's like, what are you talking about? What happened? I explained, box over my head, held it out weird. Pop, 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 dropped the box, arm went weak. She's like, all right, let's get it over with. Let's look at the damage. And I took my sweatshirt off and she goes, oh, yep, sure enough, you definitely tore your bicep. And I looked in the mirror and my right arm, my bicep was like halfway down from where it was supposed to be, all balled up as if I was flexing. And I was like, God damn it. Oh, I can't believe knowing the truth was worse than fearing the truth in that moment. I didn't want to know what the truth was. But that's what this episode is about. Is what the right thing to do is when you have a setback like this. And to frame it for you, the reason why I'm calling this a setback is because I've been working really hard at getting into really good shape. Got my eating dialed in. I've been addicted to lifting lately, addicted to working out. Summer's around the corner. Felt like I was adding good muscle, excited to go to the gym every single day. I was on a roll. And then for this to happen, my God, this is the last thing I needed to have happen. Now I'm going to have to go and have surgery and do rehab and the whole recovery dance. And damn it, I'm just too busy for that, to be honest with you. And I don't have the energy for that, to be honest with you. And it took away the one thing that felt like what I was in control of in life right now. And that was every day, because I work so hard right now. Every day, I get about 2 hours where I get to be by myself and drive to the gym and listen to podcasts and do a workout and get a good sweat in and feel like I'm doing something for me instead of for the businesses and everybody else. And so when I say a setback, it's not just that I injured my arm and I tore my bicep. It is that it's a setback in life, in the one thing that I was on a roll and really enjoying. So here's why I frame it for you that way. We're all going to have setbacks, whether it is in business or in life or in health or in relationships, in anything. We can't avoid them. We're going to have these moments that come out of nowhere, and they're going to be big setbacks. That's literally just the circumstances of being human, living in a very human world. But there's 4 things you can do to turn that setback into something extraordinary. And that's what I'm going to share with you today. Because right away, I got out of my pity party and I got to work. And one of the things that helped me get out of my pity party and get back to work right away was knowing these 4 things that you can do when you have a setback. So number 1 is this. Number 1 is accept it. Accept it and accept it as quick as you can. The faster you accept the fact that something went wrong, that you had a setback, the faster you can get to correcting it. The pain is actually just prolonged in the denial. Think about it. When you put things off that you know you should be addressing, or when you sit in your pity party, that's just bringing more pain to the equation than has to be there. But instead, if you accept that it happened and you get out of denial and you get into action right away, then the faster you take action, the quicker things can get better, right? It literally is that basic. But you also have to remember this. The faster you take action, the faster things will start unfolding in your favor, because success loves speed. And you wouldn't be listening to a show like this unless you dreamed of success in your business, in your life, in your relationships, right? And so if success is the goal, and if success loves speed, then the speed at which you accept that this setback happened is going to help set you up for newer, greater success. So number 1, accept it. That's what I did. What it looked like in my situation. Once I was afraid to look and then finally looked at it and saw the bicep all balled up there, I said, well, all right, this is what it is. What can I do right away to fix this? So the very next thing I did is number 2. I went and I got the best advice and the best help that I had access to. That's number 2. Get the best advice and the best help that you possibly can. So in my case, right away, even though it was Friday night at 7:30 at night, I dialed up my concierge doctor, Dr. David Boyd. You guys got to check him out. He's David Boyd, MD on Instagram. He's the personal concierge doctor for only about 100 clients. And he's real selective who he works with. But if you want you name the famous entrepreneur, it's one of his clients. And if you want to work with him, it's where when life happens to you from a health standpoint or even a preventative standpoint, it's where you're grateful you have the privilege of having one of these guys on speed dial. So Friday night, I dialed him up. I'm like, doctor, you're never going to believe this. I'm moving. I lifted something above my head. I heard pop, pop, pop. Arm went out. And sure enough, I tore my bicep. And, he was able to kind of look at it from afar right away and be like, yep, sure enough. And then he was able to tell me what to expect. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to have a lot of bruising and gruesome colors, and don't let that, be afraid. And also don't just rest the arm the whole time. You don't want your shoulder to freeze up. So to the extent that you can, do some shoulder. He gave me the rundown right away within 30 minutes of this happening. And, get ice on it right away, ice it for this long, take it off, ice it for this long, take it long. He gave me the playbook to know what to do. Now, I didn't have to go to an emergency room. I didn't have to wait for a doctor's appointment. I didn't have to do any of that. I got the right advice and the right playbook of what to do right away. And that's what I mean by get the best advice that you can and the best help that you can. I did another thing under number 2 here, getting the best help that I can. I texted some of my friends right away for support. Bro, you're never going to believe what happened. We're moving this weekend. I lifted a box above my head, tore my bicep. I can't believe this happened to me. And I think part of me was texting for pity party. The other part of me was texting for support. Intuitively, right away, I knew I needed support. This is what I mean when I say get the best help that you can. You need good people in your life that you can dial up or text right away and get support. And I got a lot of good support back, but in particular, one of my friends, super high-end entrepreneur, Bill Glazer, founder of Outstanding Foods, he texted me something back that made a huge difference and shifted me from pissed off and angry to optimistic in one text. He said, remember when I shattered my wrist last year? He said, that was the beginning of such a strict rehab process and such strong new routines. And I had to dial in my food so good because I couldn't work out because I had a shattered wrist. that the reason why you complimented me the other day, because the other day I went out to dinner with him. I'm like, bro, you look great. You're jacked. You're the leanest, best you've ever looked. He said, the reason why you complimented me the other day is because I broke my wrist and because that put me on the track of these new routines. And so right away, I went from pissed off and mad to optimistic because of the support from a friend like that who said, hey, man, I was there last year and now I'm better than ever. And that's going to be your story too. So the advice from Dr. Boyd, the support from friends like Bill, that's number 2. You got to get the best advice and the best help you can. And then number 3 was a continuation of me getting the best advice. The next day, I had some work, some clients, that kind of thing that I still had to attend to, right? Just because your bicep rolls down your arm doesn't mean that you stop doing your work, I guess, unless it's physical work. And so I was talking to one of my clients, and her name is Elza. Matter of fact, check her out on Instagram at Elza Sophie on Instagram. And she does a lot of like energy work and a lot of healing, and has developed this really cool new program called Atlas Code. And she uses AI to do what she calls running a code on you. And when she does that, it spits out like advice and kind of changes your stories and changes what she calls identity codes. And it's really cool. Well, I had a work session, right? She's like, hey, how are you? I'm like, oh, not so good. Tore my bicep. Blah, blah. She's like, oh, let me run a code on you using the new Atlas program that I built. I'm like, I would love that actually. And, I have a hard time asking for help, especially when it's a client and friend. I typically, when there's a client involved, I don't want to bother them. But something in that moment, I was like, you know what? I would actually really appreciate that. So she did. And she said the most simple thing in the world that you really shifted and became number 3 in what you can do when you have a setback. And it was this. She said, okay, well, the number one thing that came back is that you have a lot of limiting beliefs around what a normal healing time is, because you've been inundated in the world with what normal expectations are when someone tears their bicep. You go to surgery, you do rehab, the recovery is this long because that's what's normal. She said, but you have a chance to choose to be the exception. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. And that became number 3 of what to do. Choose to be the exception. I don't care if it's a financial setback. Come back faster and bigger than anyone else ever has faster. I don't care if it's a business setback. Solve it faster than anybody else has. Come back bigger than anyone else has. I don't care if it's a physical setback like what I'm having. I'm going to come back at record speed because that's my expectation. And it just made so much sense. It was the simplest response, but made the biggest difference to me. Because I went from telling everybody for 24 hours, oh, here's what it's going to be. I got to have surgery and probably going to be, 8 to 12 weeks of rehab and blah, 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 to somebody simply saying, hey, you're adopting the normal timeline. Why don't you choose the exception and see how quickly you can beat this? And so number 3 is choose to be the exception no matter what your setback is, because people set records every single day. Why not you? Why not you? It's like the 4-minute mile story. Way back when, before anyone ever ran a 4-minute mile, they literally thought that your body would break apart if you ran a 4-minute mile. The best mile at the time were in the 5s. And one person ran the 4-minute mile. And that year, I don't know the exact number, but it was something like 11 other people did once they heard that he did. Why? He was the exception. And then other people believed that an exception to what they thought was the norm, right? A 5+ minute mile. They believed that being an exception was possible. And that's how they went from no one doing it to like 11 people or whatever the number is that you're doing it. So for this recovery, I'm going to choose to be the exception. As a matter of fact, I'm doing visualizations and all these really cool things. And that's going to lead into number 4, I'll tell you about in a minute. But when I go to the orthopedic surgeon right away on Monday here coming up, I'm going to walk right in that place and be like, how do I be the exception? Maybe I don't need surgery. What are other options? What's the fastest you've seen someone come back from something like this? And when you choose to be the exception, it changes your whole mentality. It changes the stance that you have. It changes the questions that you ask. So if number 3 is choose to be exception, what's number 4? Number 4 is what I'm going to get on Monday. I'm going to get a plan from the orthopedic surgeon, which is like this goes back to number 2, get the best advice and help you can. Dr. David Boyd right away got me into the busiest, best orthopedic surgeon in Newport Beach, California here, which is a hard thing to do. This was Friday night it happened. By Saturday morning, they had my Monday morning appointment totally set. How cool is that? And so I'm going to go to this guy and I'm going to ask him, how do I create a plan to be the exception? And of course, it's probably going to include surgery, but maybe it won't. what if I'm the exception? And it's going to include rehab, but how fast can I do it? And it's going to include diet, not from him, but I'm going to seek out and get a chef to make sure my diet is totally dialed in. And I'm going to make sure that everything is just dialed right now. What workouts can I do? I'm actually getting these new workouts from a really cool workout app from our friends Ali and Matt Aruda. Check them out, Ali and Matt Aruda on Instagram. And they've got a new fitness app that they're launching. And I'm going to literally tell them, okay, guys, I need all the workouts that work around my bicep tear in the rehab. And I need to stay in a certain amount of shape. I'm not going to go backwards during this. I'm going to make progress during this, part of being the exception. That's number 4. I'm going to create a better plan and I'm going to stick to it. And this is, again, if it's a setback in business or personal or relationships, it doesn't matter. A better plan will get you out of the mess the fastest. Not a willy-nilly plan, not one that you kind of stick to, not one that you kind of make. I'm going to create a playbook based on everything that my orthopedic surgeon says and that Matt and Ali Aruda say and that my chef says and that everybody else says. I'm going to create a freaking playbook so that I can be the exception and make progress during this thing. So that's what you do when you have a setback. Number 1, you accept it. The faster you accept it, the faster you can get to correcting it. Number 2, you get the best advice and the best help you can. That means from professionals, but it also means from friends. You need like a really good crew around you. And if you don't, it's time to start assembling one. Number 3, it's choose to be the exception. I was so rooted in what the normal path is going to look like that I never even considered that I could be the exception until now. And number 4, create an absolute beast of a plan and stick to it. Create a better plan and stick to it. You do those 4 things when you have a setback, and it's going to absolutely become the springboard that launches you into bigger, better, richer, healthier, faster, happier, you name it. Your setback is going to be your springboard if you do those 4 things. And listen, if you have any kind of business setback and you want some help on it, if you want me to be a part of this equation, remember, I'm now taking one-on-one clients again. It's been a few years. But when I was in Italy with my buddy Rob, and he asked me why I don't do it anymore, I said, well, I don't want to be on Zoom. So I just stopped doing it. He said, do you miss it? I said, hell yeah, I miss it. It's like one of my favorite things to do. Working on other people's business. You kidding me? He said, so then why don't you just do it in a way that you would be able to do it? No Zoom. I said, no one's going to want that. He said, no, what would it look like? I said, well, honestly, I'd fly him to me, like on my dime. I'd fly him to me for the kickoff meeting, and I'd fly him to me, every 60 days or so for in-person meetings instead of Zooms. And they would just text me and call me and ask for everything they need in between those Zooms while they're implementing what we talked about when we meet in person. He's like, so do it. And I did it. And it's been so fun. And so I'm going to open up another spot for another client. If one of you guys want to be a one-on-one client where it's in-person coaching only, I fly you to me on my dime every roughly 45, 60 to 75 days, whatever pace suits you. And then you do the work in between those with full access to me, my network, everything else. That sounds like something that you want to check out. Go to chrisharder.me/coaching and fill out the app. We'll have a quick chat to see if it's a good fit. Now, you really have to have a business that's above $250,000 a year for it to make sense. Most clients are all 7-8 figures, but if you have a business that's doing beyond $250,000 a year and you want me to lock arms with you for 6 or 12 months, then let's do it. But it's got to be in person. That's the catch, on my dime. Go to chrisharder.me/coaching. All right, guys, thanks for listening. Wish me luck with this comeback. I'm going to be the exception, and I appreciate you listening.
Thanks for listening. And if you loved this episode and know of someone else who is as successful as they are generous, please pass them on to me. It would mean the world to me if you help me get this cause and this message out to as many listeners as I can. So please, if you liked what you heard, it goes a long way if you take 30 seconds and leave me a 5-star review and share this with your friends. I'll be forever grateful. And until the next episode, cheers to your success.